Tell me who you know doing things like the Lemon Boys do it on the way to the top. This just elevator music, matter of fact, this a slap. I ain't even playing hockey. I'ma put it in reverse like Fanaki, cocky. Never we killing these brothers softly, awfully clever. You know you could never stop me, huh? Y'all be driving stick shift, this is auto. You know I'll turn it up, G Donato. I wanna beat up the beat, you gotta see us to see. Put the whole house on it, you know that Keenan is key. Squad so deep, take a map just to find them all. And you know I'm about to eat like I'm Ryan Paul. Too tough, no rest, crown, I wear it, Big cut, big flex, Mike Garrett. Run the game around here, this is natural. And you know I got the touch like a maspo. Spike lemonade, on the way to the top, about to elevate.
You're listening to Spiked Lemonade, the only RoundNet podcast that squeezes out all the juice in the RoundNet community right now. Today we have myself, Matt Spo, my co-host,
Joshy Spo, and
once again, for the last part of this 3-part series, we have Mr. Tripp Pierson.
Yep.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about player behavior in the ring, in the spike ball ring. So we're going to really talk about phantom calls, Bullyball, and we're going to get into the juice that is match rigging. Something that has been brought up recently, something that we will talk about and bring up with Mr. Pierson while he's here, and ultimately talk about the Philly Gate scandal. Dun dun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So phase one, and why we're going to talk about the Philly Gate is when we first connected with Tripp and we talked about getting on the podcast, he made it clear to us nothing's off the table. So he talked about balls and strikes. So we said, all right, we're going to lob one here over the plate for you. We'll see if it's a ball or a strike. He made some pretty bold claims about the co-ed final in Philadelphia Major this year, alluding to maybe some bodies not giving their best effort in an effort to manipulate some things. And pretty much here we will have Tripp dive into that a little bit, backing those claims. So he's here to take it right on the chest and let us have it. So I guess we'll see how it goes. First and foremost, let's go with phantom calls in the game. You're playing at the premier level. I'm playing at the premier level. Tripp sees the highest level of the women's game more than anything. Where do you see phantom calls the most, Matt? Let's start with you.
When a game is real tight and you think the team you're against is falling behind by this much, and they just think they need one break or they need that one spot to really just put them ahead. And if there's a close call, let's say you hit a really good serve to get you 2 breaks up or 1 break up late in the game, and they call rim. It's a call that they made knowing damn well that they didn't see rim. One of those phantom calls where they didn't see it, but it was like maybe that was rim. It was close. Was it just a really good serve? I'm going to call it anyway because I have my right to call and redo a point. And that's that abusive redo that we will also touch on that comes along with phantom calls.
So, Tripp, I'll love for you, before you dive into your piece, how would you define a phantom call?
I think Matt, hit the nail on the head. It's not so much, just bullyballing somebody, just running roughshod over top of them just by having, a stronger appetite for conflict or arguing or whatever else. It's just about picking, that right spot in the game. And I see this a lot, when you're grinding away, it's, 12-12, game 3, and the game's going to break one way or the other by who gets that big point, and then it comes, and they try and steal it right back from you. And it's that one call that the game can hinge on, and it's just a problem. Self-officiating is a problem in RoundNet, in whatever form that it takes, but it's really it's just really out of control. And I've been saying this since the start of since start of maybe midway through the season. It's just gotten out of control, and we need some strong leadership to give some instruction on how we should be self-officiating games, so that people are calling things fairly. And I think the first step is just talking about it honestly, identifying that this goes on, and it needs to get better, you know. And I'll say this: when I bring up, you know, pretty much any issue that I bring up, you know, is going to get opposed just because I said it. Number one, I can say water's wet, and people are going to like argue with me, and I get that now. But whenever I bring up this issue of player behavior, some people are going to say we need to have paid officials for every match, and that's in utopia. That's a great solution, but we're just not there, okay? And we're not going to be there for a long time, and that's okay. But we just need to stop with the paid officials for every match answer, because it's just completely out of the realm of possibility. Other sports self-officiate, like tennis. They play really high-level tennis matches and like Division I tournaments, where there's incredible tennis being played by incredible athletes, and all the way up until like the semifinals or the finals, they will self-officiate their own matches. So
essentially, this is possible.
It is possible,
right?
But you know, again, you know, we need to identify what's going on, and I've got some suggestions for, you know, how I think we can fix this, how I think we can start to turn things and move into a better direction. But you know, whether leadership will actually listen and implement some of the things that I think will help is out of my control.
So talk to me. What are you talking about?
So
where's a good place to start?
You know, a good place to start as far as solutions go?
Yes.
Okay. I think the solution for you know, phantom calls and Bullyball and things like that, number one is, you know, leadership needs to acknowledge that this is an area that's a problem, number one, and we need to start to have more integrity with our officiating. The second thing that we need to do is we need to have some kind of instruction on how to make calls, okay? And I've been saying this again for years. The overriding principle is we need to call what we know, not what we think we know, okay? If there's doubt in your mind about, you know, what happened or not, then you need to play through it, you know. And if everybody would do that, then we'd play a lot more points and make a lot less calls. And I can tell you, that's what they do in Europe. You know, this is one of the things that the Europeans do a lot better than we do over here. If there's, you know, they play a lot of serves that might be high, because that's just what they do. Unless they really know that serve is high, they're going to go on ahead and play through it. And it's just kind of a culture thing that they do. I think they don't make nearly as many calls as we do. They play a lot more points, and they decide it like on the field, and it's even and it's fair. You know, what I would say is, I'm not the rules committee, I'm not Rich Tarpey, but I would try and give people like a percentage instruction. You know, I would say you need to be like 90 or 95% sure, you know, about that call. Maybe you can't be, like, I get it, you can't be 100% sure, but you need to be more than 51% sure that what just happened was something that you can call. And if we did that, if we said you need to really know that call that you're making is accurate, that it's legitimate before you call it. Elsewise, if there's, you know, 15% doubt, if there's 20% doubt, you need to play through that. And that's the way that everybody needs to do it. And if we did that, we'd play more points, we'd have less calls, and the calls that we did have, we wouldn't have...
would hold more weight.
They'd hold more weight, right. And you could trust that this guy only made 3 calls all match, okay? So the one that he does make, you know, I can trust it. But if somebody's calling everything, every play, all the time, you know, yeah. It's not, you know, it's like the boy who cried wolf. So that would be my solution. You know, we're putting a lot of effort into officiating and training officials or observing, training observers, and that's all great, training referees and flags and doing all that. But the fact remains the majority of games are going to be played self-officiated. And how much instruction do the players get on how to self-officiate games and how to call their own games? I don't see any. I think that's a problem.
What do you think, Matt?
I think it's a really good point he just made. I mean, do you know? So you're familiar with tennis. I'm not. Do you know if, I don't know what the tennis tour is, but when kids are learning tennis, do they tell them like, hey, you need to be 95% sure that ball is out before you can call it out?
I know when Katie was playing, high school tennis, which, is not the highest level, but still some good tennis.
Competitive tennis, yeah.
Yeah, integrity is encouraged.
Yeah.
Integrity is a virtue that is respected. And you need to go out, win or lose, and you need to play with honor. You need to, make accurate calls and not try and steal points from your opponent.
Yeah, it's one of the few sports where you don't talk in between. You cheer and then you quiet down. It's like it's like a gentleman's sport.
Yeah.
And I think there is some unwritten rules and some person to person understanding that I'm not here to cheat you. I'm just gonna try and beat you. I'm not gonna make terrible calls. In high school, I feel like the rule of thumb I didn't play, but I was friends with some people that did, was don't make the call unless it's blatant. Play through. Don't make the call. It's not worth the redo, the argument, and what's to come. Just play through. So I know that my buddies, for the most part, if it was close, they played through. And again, when you look at those, I know I watch a lot of tennis. When you look at those close calls and they bring in the cam that's floating in space somewhere and it's on the line by like an eighth of an inch, a lot of times it's too hard to make those calls in real time as you're playing, as you're setting your feet, as you're working on your technique. It's very hard to make those close calls. So I think a good rule of thumb should be to play through.
Yeah. And if you think, tennis is a sport where it's a lot harder to self-officiate than round
for watching a lot more.
If they can do it, we should be able to do it.
Oh, without a doubt.
But it's just, again, it's this dishonest culture, that we have where I can get away with this, I can push for a redo. There's no accountability. The other team can't do anything. And so we've just, it's almost a joke now. Somebody hits a big serve or something, and I hear people off to the side yelling, call something, and it's like, this is where we are now? It's really bad. And the people that get hurt by it the most are the people that are trying to get to that next level. And the top players will use their status because nobody wants to go against the top player, and they'll make that phantom call, or they'll just outright bully somebody that does not have the success, that does not have the name recognition that a top player or a top team has.
So we've defined phantom calls, and you've mentioned Bullyball now. What's the difference? Where's that line between a phantom call and Bullyball? Is a phantom call always Bullyball?
No, I think that. And again, these are just terms that that we kick around. It's not like I'm kind of.
It's not written in stone.
Exactly, but I think a phantom call is that one call at the right time that can turn a match. It's that break that you've been looking for, and then you finally get it, and then somebody's just gonna they realize how important it is too, and they just make something up, and it's hard to contest that. You really can't. In the system that we have, you're just depending on that other person's honor and integrity. And then Bullyball, I think, is just, it's just overall, you're just going to determine the outcome of this game in large part by the fact that you're more aggressive, that you're more willing to, have a confrontation, that you'll just push somebody around. And again, I think that's, it happens with the more talented, more established team versus the younger, less established team, and nobody wants to take the blowback.
That's a good way to put it. No, I wouldn't have put it any different myself.
Like the backlash, and there's there's three types of people in the community that I see. There's folks that are ignorant to the things that go on, whether they're they're apathetic. They don't care what's going on. They're just out there playing,
enjoying
just
themselves.
doing whatever. Okay,
Yep.
so this type of stuff doesn't bother them.
Yep.
Or they're willfully ignorant. They're turning a blind eye to some obvious things that are happening because they don't want to see what's going on. So you have ignorant people, number one. You have people that know, but they're just not going to say anything, and that's a lot of people. A lot of people know that there's dishonest things that go on in round net, but they're not going to say anything against their friends, against the company, against leadership, because everybody is friends, and everybody knows each other. And if you say something, even if it's against this person, you got to deal with the backlash, from all their friends and from all the other top players and all that other nonsense. And so, people don't want to say anything and deal with all that. They'd rather just get screwed, and move on.
Yeah, and carry on.
And then the last group of people are people that they know what's going on, but they're benefiting from it. You got people that, the top level players, people in leadership, like they're winning. Sometimes these top players are winning. Sometimes these top players are winning, but they're all winning all the prize money and splitting it up all the time, and they're benefiting from a system. So why would they want to change it? Why would they want to rock the boat when they're at the top of this thing and they're winning prize money and it's all working for them?
Give me an example of something that you've seen that you've really noticed. That's like a great example of bully ball at a top level. What is like you just seem like you've witnessed it and you have like, I want to know what you're thinking of.
So we were in Nova, and I was watching a match between a really passionate player. He's an up and coming player, not a traditional what you would think of as a top player. Somebody like a Kieran Rose. Kieran is my friend. Kieran was on the pod, and he came and he told his story, and Kieran is the type of player that really suffers from this, I believe, the most. He's doing everything that he can do, and he's sacrificing, he's doing the work, he's traveling, and he's trying to get, into that top level, to be a top pro player. But he doesn't have the name recognition and the clout and the experience. And so when a player like that, runs into somebody that into a team that they're supposed to lose to, or they aren't favored to beat, they're good enough to win if they play their best game. Because, again, this is such a serve-heavy game. There's plenty of people like Kieran and his partner. If they get hot on serve, they can beat you. But the other team will do anything and everything that they can do not to lose that game. And just make calls. And I saw something like this happen in Nova.
With Kieran?
I see it all over the place. It wasn't with Kieran. It was with somebody else.
Okay.
But a player kind of like Kieran who's putting in the work, who's traveling. They got hot and they were ahead late, and then they just absolutely just got bullyballed with the calls. And the other team's justification for the calls was trash. And it was just like, when people are talking about this call, the only question that should be asked is, did you see it? Did you see it or did you not see it? Not well, I thought I heard it, or I thought this, or I thought that, or it couldn't have been that way. It's just, what did you see versus what didn't you see? That's the only question. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, if you weren't looking right at it, and you're not 90% sure you can make the call, then you shouldn't make the call. And it's, this is just prevalent. Anybody that doesn't want to admit to this doesn't know what's going on, or they're benefiting from it, and they don't want to rock the boat or mess up what they've got going on. And it's a reason why there aren't more upsets in the sport, quite honestly, because there are people that are trying to get to the next level, and a lot of times you have to beat somebody about 24-19 if you're the underdog playing against an established team, because they're gonna bully ball you off a couple points, and a couple points in a spike ball game at the highest level and round net is huge.
It's huge. Yeah.
So that's what I see. It's a large part of the reason why I go to tournaments still with Katie, is to help manage those situations. She can certainly do it on her own, but there's certain people that we're not going to play without an observer, just period, because we know that type of stuff goes on. So I don't think it's not just a women's thing. It's not. It's all over.
It's
the
everywhere.
place.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Even
it's all over
even
the
with
place.
newer guys, I've seen it before with newer guys who are like, they're just playing for fun, and then they make a call. It's like, they're arguing. They're like this. They don't even take the sport seriously. They're just playing it for fun because they have a free afternoon on a Saturday, and it's like, oh no, that was pocket. No, it wasn't pocket. It wasn't pocket. But like, they're arguing about it, and it's like, why? Why? There's too much arguing. Why can't we all just relax, right? Play our game. Play a fun game. But yeah, I think the arguing, and then when it comes down to it, arguing adds time. And then if you're arguing, now you're playing like a 30-minute game, which is ridiculous as far as like this tournament scheduling and trying to keep everybody on pace for a smooth tournament. It's just a ripple effect at that point.
Then you got to play your bracket games of 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get all upset. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It really frustrates me because, again, our people, our players, they're not bad people. I'm not saying that, but you've got to have strong leadership, to tell people this is what we're going to do. This is how it needs to be, and we've got leaders that are smart enough to put policies in place. They just need to be strong enough, to do it, to implement the policies, and then to back them up. One conversation that I had on the Discord the other day, somebody was arguing with me when I talked about, not playing bracket games to 15 and eliminating half the field, and they were talking about, well, I got to clean up the field after every tournament. Well, you shouldn't have to. When I ran our tournament series, I just told the players, everybody, before we leave right now, everybody pick up trash. Nobody's leaving until we get all the trash up. And then everybody got the trash up. And it wasn't like that big of a deal. It's not like anybody was like, no, we're not doing it, we hate you, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't that big a deal. But if you expect people out of the goodness of their heart after a long day to pick up trash, they're not going to do it. You just have to be strong enough to say, this is what we need to do. I think with the ball theft, we just need to be strong enough to say, this is what we're going to do. With the self-officiating, we need to be strong enough to devise the plan, whatever it is, to address it and say, this is what we're going to do, and then implement it, and we can start making progress. But, and I know that people, get so frustrated with me, and it's like, why are you saying these things? Why is everything that you say have to be like controversial or, pointing out negativity? And I guess my answer to that is, well, who else will? Like, which of our administrators, is that person that you say, that's the guy that's going to lay down the law or that's going to start to turn this thing around and make things get better? Like, I'm not seeing it.
I wrote this down because you told us on Friday, before, when you first got here and we were hanging out, before we started recording, you said that you're speaking for the percentage of people who won't speak up, and there's a lot of them. That's what, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what you said, yeah? Something along those lines? Where it's just, there's a lot of people out there who agree with you, but they just won't speak up. They don't want to be that person to have the eyes on them. They don't want to be under the spotlight in any way, shape, or form. They kind of just want to play their game, get in, get out, do their thing. And like, as Tripp told me, he just said, yeah, I'm that person for all of them to kind of like be the voice. Be the voice that nobody else wants to be.
Yeah, I'm certainly not a hero by any means. I never, try to portray myself as that. I don't enjoy being a villain, but if it comes, to me saying something that needs to be said or it not getting said at all, then I'll say it, because I want our sport to be the very best that it can be. And these things that we're struggling with, they are solvable, but we have to address them. They're not going to fix themselves. We just need to start to turn things around and address these issues, and we can make progress and we can get better. That's what I want. I want it to be fair competition for everybody, and be as legitimate and professional as we can be, and then I think everybody will have a better experience, because of it.
When you first got into the game and the competitive scene, did you come in with that same energy though, like that guns blazing, like this is how I feel, take it or leave it, I'm not changing, you know what I mean? This is who I am. Or do you feel as though like what's happened over the past couple of years and how you feel like you've kind of been treated and left out and your group like, really not highlighted much, has it sort of jaded you to feeling like I feel like I kind of have to be a little bit more aggressive with some of these takes, or is that just you? That's how I am.
Well, I think that's that's a really honest question, a good question. I guess I feel like because everything that I say gets argued with, no matter what I say. You made the comment to me the other day, if Ryder Riva says, hey, we shouldn't be playing bracket games to 15, like 50 likes, right off the bat.
It would.
Okay, but because I say it, now somebody's arguing with me.
Yeah, it's a bunch of clown emojis,
about something that like is pretty obvious to everybody. Nobody wants to lose, bracket games to 15. There's other ways where we can, save time if we need to save time. So yeah, I'm definitely a little bit, probably a little bit more hostile, to that type of stuff because, I know that it's coming, and that's, could I do better? Probably so. Could maybe some of the things, that I say not get argued with? Probably so. So I think that's a fair question. But, as, the things that I've been passionate about are things that I felt like I could not ignore. Way back in the day, probably one of the first things that I got into it with top players and leaders about was they were drawing lines, serving lines and everything. We didn't have NHZ at that point, but they draw serving lines only for Premier. So you'd go to like a big old STS tour stops, or what we called it back then, and only the Premier division would have lines.
What year are we talking, just for context? 2020?
That's
19?
That's probably 20. I'd say
it's probably
20.
a little earlier than that, probably, right?
That's 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Keep going.
talking middle of 2018.
Okay.
Katie and I had kind of moved into the advanced division. We went to Raleigh, and it was one of the tournaments that we actually had enough teams to have a youth division, which was really crazy. That's at that point. But my argument was always people that aren't as experienced need lines and more structure a lot more than top players that are more experienced do. And again, it was just such a ridiculous issue. I couldn't even believe that we wouldn't take the time and the spray paint, which cost pennies, and line the whole field.
Right.
But this was something that I had to fight, tooth and nail with some pretty established people in the sport to get them to draw lines for everybody. And I had to make arguments that I felt like I just felt silly having to make. Like, we all paid the same amount for this tournament. Are we all not going to get the same experience? What does it say to the player, that's just starting out, that he's not as important, to the company or, to the sport as the player that's already there? So it was just, but I started arguing, with people about those things, just because I felt like I couldn't not stand up for something that was so egregious. And these things that I see at tournaments are, to me, they are just as egregious. And Kieran went out, all the way out to Portland and got call-balled so bad that he didn't play the third place game.
Talking co-ed, just for context.
Didn't play the third place game and just forfeited the thing. And that dude loves to play. Like, he is doing the work. He was on the podcast. You know him. Me and Kieran aren't, like, super close, but I respect his effort. I respect everything that he's doing to be the best player that he can be. And when he forfeits a game because it's so bad and he's so upset, that is bad for the sport. And we ought to do something about it, whether it has anything to do with Katie or not.
Yeah, independent of that. Yeah. We'll see. I think that, continuing to talk about it is a very, very good first step. More needs to be done, but just bringing it up and being comfortable to talk about the areas where you feel like we're falling a little bit short is a good first step. We talked a little bit about this last night, and then we had to pull the reins on it because I wanted to ask you this question on the podcast and not have any discussion beforehand. It's a couple-part question. First part of the question, when you first thought about wanting to sit down and talk more about your story and, your views on the sport and where we're headed, did you ever consider reaching out to any other mediums in the game, any other podcasts or personnel to go and share your story before you reached out to us?
No, but just because I knew they wouldn't have me on, I offered, there were times back in the day when I said, hey, why don't you have me on? I've got some things to say, about what's going on, about not enough divisions in small tournaments, about this that's going on or that's going on. And, people don't want to, I got people on the Discord right now that, like we talked about earlier, they'll tell me, we don't think you should even be allowed here, which is craziness to me. But that's neither here nor there. So, the short answer to that is no. I did not bother asking any of the more established people in the sport whether they might want to, talk to me about some of these issues.
Okay. And okay, so how did you hear about us, and what was the thought process in reaching out to us? You know what I mean? Versus one of them, and I know essentially your answer, but I kind of just want to hear you articulate it.
Well, I just wanted that. I mean, I don't feel like some people, if you're not, in the in crowd, or you're not an established player, or you're not one of, the company's favorites, then, the things that you say are just going to get shouted down. Somebody's going to come back and say, that's not a real issue. This isn't the right forum. I don't like the tone that you said it, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, I believe that everybody ought to be able to have an opinion. Everybody's, if everybody has concerns or if anybody has concerns, that leadership should at least hear those concerns and address them in a straightforward manner. That hasn't been my experience with current leadership, and if they won't listen to me and to Katie, who have played more tournaments, traveled more miles, invested more money, if they won't listen to us because we don't agree with everything that they say, then I don't have any confidence that they'll listen to anybody that's just not just nodding right along with everything that they have to say. And I think that's a problem. Like I said, you don't have to agree with me, but if you're a leader, you ought to communicate in an honest and straightforward manner, with the people that you're purporting to lead. And I hear different people saying you should go through the proper channels. Well, when you go through the proper channels and you get, and nobody will hear your voice, or nobody will have a discussion with you, or nobody will talk about substantive issues, then what other recourse do you have but to talk straight to the community themselves? And that's why I appreciate, you coming on here, or you letting me come on and address some of these issues. But I don't feel like it's fair if I just come on and say, this is what I want to talk about, and we're not talking about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I ought to come on, and if I'm talking about leaders needing to be honest and transparent, then I should be willing to do that too on whatever you guys want to talk about.
And that might be the perfect segue into what we want to talk about. So he threw it up for me. I had to dunk it.
Nice.
So we are calling this Philly Gate, the co-ed finals of Subtle versus Gabraham Lincoln, Nebraska, and accusations that were said. And we want to see what he sees. We want to see if he can back it up. He's been saying all weekend and all 3-part series. He said, I'm a man of my word. I'll say it. I believe it. And I'll be able to back it up. It's like, we're going to put you to the test.
Yeah. So take me back to Philadelphia, co-ed. You guys had been eliminated. We're already in transit to home. When was the first time in this series that you had an inclination something suspicious was happening?
Well, Katie and Frederick played together. Katie and Etienne are regular partners. They're mixed signals. And one of our goals all season long was to make co-ed pro, just to give you a little bit of background.
Context, yeah, sure.
And co-ed pro is just incredibly difficult. Like, co-ed is very hard. I think it's very hard for women, just because the guys are so overpowering and they're playing with the best of the best. I mean, Joe Bondi's awesome. Will Piconi's awesome. I mean, these are the best male players in the world, and the women have to stand in there, and just dig in and play with them.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's especially difficult because Katie's on the smaller side, so her size makes it hard. Anyways, one of our goals was to make co-ed pro, to be one of the top co-ed teams all season long, but that was kind of like we kind of felt like maybe that's a bit of a long shot. Just because I know how difficult it is. You've got Ryan and Kara are awesome. You've got, Will and Olivia are the world champions. You've got, Allie and Raul, and then, Allie and Joe, both like super top level players. Clark Marshall and Laura are like, giants. I mean, those are big, tall players. Clark's world champion. Laura may be the best women's player in the world. So just those 4 alone, it's like, how are we going to, displace one of those teams and make top 4? But like with everything else, we put a plan together and said, these are the tournaments we're going to play, and we're going to give it our best shot. And we went all in on it, and Etienne is a great partner for Katie. And we went to Salt Lake City. We got a 3rd place. We got a great draw. That we earned in pool play, but we got a really great draw, and we got a 3rd place there, which were nice points. And then we went to Santa Cruz, and they played really well together, and they won that tournament. And that put us in a good spot. It put us squarely at number 3. And then it was just a matter of, okay, now we need to keep pushing and try and hold that spot till the end.
A little bit.
Yeah, and so, but I was paying attention, every week, whether we're playing or whether we're not playing, to the teams that maybe could catch us. And, because it was our goal and because we were working towards it, I mean, it's not a super complicated system, but I know how it works. I know how the point system works. And I was keeping track of what was going on. I was paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
And in Philadelphia, Gabe and Sarah, it was going to be their last tournament, and it was kind of common knowledge that Sarah was not going to be able to go to Columbus, and they were sitting in about the 9th or 10th spot. and hadn't really, I don't think they'd made a podium yet. So they were way off, being in the top 4, like a long way off. And they're playing their last tournament. They got a really good draw, and I think they played great all the way to the final. Okay? But on the other side of the bracket, you had Will and Olivia and Allie and Joe, and those are the 2 best co-ed teams on the planet. I mean, and I don't think anybody would contest that. Both of those teams are super high level, and they played a semifinal that was just tremendous. And Subtle beat them for the first time ever. And beating Will and Olivia is a big deal because they're the best. They're the best co-ed team. And I think there's a little bit of gap there between them and everybody else. But Allie and Joe played a great match, and they beat the best co-ed team in the world, and they had to play excellent to do it. For them to lose to a team that hadn't made a podium yet, fresh off of that semifinal win, was a very unexpected result. I'll just say that it was extremely unexpected. That's not a result that anybody that knows round net and knows co-ed would expect to happen, especially not to get blown out and give up an 11-point run in game 3. That's over half a game. So that raises some eyebrows right there. So, I have some experience with gambling. I've been around gambling, kind of for the better part, for over 30 years. Okay.
Sure.
And so, the questions that I would ask if there's a very unexpected or surprising outcome is, was there, if I go back and look at it, now just an unexpected outcome in and of itself doesn't mean anything. Upsets happen. Mm-hmm. But what I'm going to ask myself is if I go look at it, is one of the players, is there an uncharacteristically poor performance that caused that? Was there a noticeable lack of effort or engagement for a championship match? And was there any other behavior that was outside the norm, during that match? Those are the things that I would look for. And when I turned on that match and I started watching it, I knew within 5 minutes that there was not a full effort being given, by Allie.
Okay. So that's essentially where you noticed it. I mean, you singled out Allie. You wouldn't say that the same could be said for Mr. Bondi. Is that fair to say?
So just looking at the evidence, okay?
Yeah.
I can't find any evidence that Joe or Gabe or Sarah played anything but their normal game.
Right.
And again, I'll just say this, the week before, Ryan and Olivia played in Nashville, and I think Ryan and Olivia would be considered heavy favorites against that field, and they didn't win. They lost in the semifinals to Living Water. That's Julia and Grant Clapwick, and but I watched that match. Just because there was an upset, just because they lost, doesn't mean that they threw it.
Ryan who? Ryan Marino?
Ryan Marino.
Okay.
I watched that match, and they just didn't play super great. And Julia and Grant did, and they won. So, I'm not – it's the totality of all the evidence and all the plays together and what I see that's why I know that she threw that match.
Okay, couple of counterpoints.
Mm-hmm.
Given that they played all day Saturday, they played their co-ed all day Sunday, and you just talked about what a barn burner they had, I think that it's possible that she could be fatigued at that point in time, at the end of a day, to potentially not give max effort if she's absolutely fatigued. What would you say to that?
Especially right after, like you said, an intense series with
Mm-hmm.
the best team in the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Well, do you see any evidence of that, or is that just a theory? That's what I would ask is do you see evidence that she's gassed? Do you see bending over, holding on the knees? Is she complaining about, oh, it's so hot? Because when I watch the film, I don't see any of that.
I'm with you. I obviously watched the film too because we were talking about it, and you sent me over some time stamps of points and plays, and it's just like, could she be tired, which then translates to her being less focused and competitive, and maybe it's not she's on her knees gonna dry heave, but it's that her exhausted translates to her being goofy and her just not being able to concentrate on the match. I don't know. I'm not in her head. Like you said, I only want to talk about what I know too, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know her at all personally. I've never had a conversation with her, period. But I just don't know what they're capable of. What do you think about reasons for why that would be a viable thing she would want to do? Like what would be the motivation?
Well, I think there's a number of possible motivations. And again, I promise that I wouldn't claim to know something that I don't know.
Right.
So I can't know exactly why she didn't give a full effort. Possible reasons. When Gabe and Sarah win that match, they move into the 3 spot. And so now that's their matchup. So
was it sealed at that point in time after that tournament was done? Was
No,
there
but there
going to
was
be no more shifting?
There was only one tournament left.
Okay.
They're pretty much locked. Suttle's pretty much locked into the 2. Gabe and Sarah would move into the 3, and that would be their potential semifinal matchup. So, the other thing is, Allie and Sarah are friends. They knock out Levy and Megan. And, well, actually, they move, Katie and Etienne down. I don't know. Maybe they consider that, maybe they consider that a better matchup. Maybe they'd like, to see their friend make co-ed pro.
Right.
I don't.
Matt, what do you think?
Was there any doubt at all that Gabe and Sarah wouldn't make co-ed pro if they didn't win that?
No, I think they would have been in the 4 spot, so they could have gotten jumped. But when they win that tournament, then that pretty much locks them in.
And you think there's cash and there's prize money, there's podium pictures, there's a lot of awards when you think about it to first place in any division, especially when you get to the pro stage. Do you think
there's not any prize money on co-ed?
There's no prize money on co-ed?
Not in Philadelphia.
Okay.
No, not in co-ed, not at the majors. There's not prize money. There's just points. There's points and there's glassware.
So points and glassware. Okay.
Points at the end of this.
So,
but there is
money at the end of the
there is $7,500 worth of prize money in co-ed pro.
Okay.
At the championship.
Right.
You
Okay. Right. I follow. Keep going.
Well, what I would just say is I just would never expect, like, just being involved in this community, I would just never expect for someone to, like, throw a finals game at a major. Just seems wild to me. But that's just me going off of thinking everybody is a good human, and I'm going to stand by that, because just in a pro level sport at a competitive level, people make friends, but it's just I would never hear that in this tight-knit community that there is. I just believe that there would be I just believe there would be no way that, especially someone as decorated as Allie, to want to just step down from being number 1. I feel like there's got to be a little bit in Allie. I'm obviously I'm not in her head. I don't know, but I'm just thinking there's got to be a little bit in Allie saying, like, yeah, I want to be the best. I want to show up. I want to be the most decorated. I want all the pictures I can get. I want all the podiums I can get, all the wins I can get. I think that's in some of everybody's head, whether you're friends with who you're playing or not. I mean, there's that competitive drive. She obviously has to have competitive drive to get to where she is now, and how awesome the Twins have done in the past few years. I mean, there's no way that there's any sort of, like, give or even like a thought of throwing in that situation.
So I just want to say one thing. We have now done, we're just finishing up, we're getting towards the tail end of our last session together. You've said and talked about a lot of things, and although I think that you come maybe sometimes a little too aggressive, although now from getting to know you a little bit better, I kind of understand why. This one here, I don't agree. I don't agree with you. I don't think that this was thrown. I just say that first and foremost. I haven't vehemently disagreed with anything you've said really today. I've just sort of been willing to give you the mic and sit here and go for a ride together. With that being said, I don't think that it's fair to not say something is fishy. I don't think that it's completely outlandish to think like, well, let's take a peek at it. I think that's fair because the scores, there can be runs in games, and I understand that there's differences in scores. The scores are enough to look into, and if anyone else listening was to sit a second and it has any ounce of competitive nature in their body and is getting bumped, at the time it's only 4 teams, if you're getting bumped to the 5th team and you're watching a match and you have suspicion of, well, this looks weird, you're going to be fired up. I don't care who you are. You're going to be fired up like, dang, I've now lost my spot. And and maybe even be looking for things. And not that you were searching for BS, but you're competitive by nature. And I know that if you're not searching for like malpractice, that's not what I'm trying to say. But I think you're more apt to see something going the wrong way than the casual viewer. And so what I'm getting around to saying is when this was taking place and you first saw it happening, I think what ended up happening was probably you saw the shifting of the games in going into Gabe's favor with Sarah, and then you're like, I would never expect them to win based off of what you just told us with their prior results, the 9th seed, something's going on. And then they dominate. And then Subtle doesn't call timeout and gives up 11. And then there's a few points where Allie is sitting on the ground midpoint. And then you start piecing things together and you're like, all right, we need to just take a look at this. So what I'm getting at is I don't think that this was thrown in my true heart of heart. Could I be wrong? Sure. But I think to say that, to consider not looking into it based off of all those factors and it being like, that's a wildly inappropriate take. I think people came to that conclusion on the Discord because of how close they are with these 4 fantastic players on the net. And I think that to go oppose any of these people and just be like, no, they threw that, it puts you in a position where you're like, geez, I'm like under the gun now, and you don't want to do that, which I think is fine. If that's your personality, that's totally cool. So we put together a list. Well, not we, but Tripp sent us over some timestamps, and so we're not going to just bring this to you, dump this information, let Tripp give us his scoop, let Matt and I go off of him, and not show you the parts in the match where Tripp had moments of like, that's kind of fishy. And again, all we're looking into is the potential of something fishy. And we're not like, indicting anybody. It's just looking at what we have, Tripp's take, and allowing him to dive in and show us, not just speculate with us as to why he thought something was fishy. So we're going to go, you want to get into the clips?
Yeah.
Okay, so give the listener the framework of how we're going to do the clips with the screen versus where we are here now.
So let me ask you this before we get into the clips.
Go ahead.
Just because I hear what the both of you guys are saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now, Matt, you talked about, round net and the fact that you don't know Allie, you don't really know her game, but this is what you think, with her being, a top player, that she wouldn't do this and so forth and so on. Like you said a lot of that you can't believe it and, things like that. But my question to you is, what is that based on?
That's a good question.
It is a great question. And that's really just based on, I guess, the fact of how successful she's been in the sport. Especially with a sport where there's only 2 people on a team, you're under the spotlight a lot. You are really just, everybody's watching you all the time. So for you to not want to be the best and do the best you can it's just something that I think wouldn't cross their mind. As far as a base that I don't really have a set base. I don't have evidence. Like I said, I've never really talked to Allie too much. It's more along the lines of just me believing that she wouldn't do such a thing.
Even though you don't know her.
Even though I don't know her. Exactly. I just think it's...
Well, that's what I'm saying. That doesn't seem very rational.
No, for
to
sure.
me.
For
it doesn't
sure.
seem like it's based on anything. And I think that's where, I think that's where we have a lot of people in the community they don't want to believe that some of these issues that we have are real.
Yeah.
And so they just turn a blind eye to it. But match rigging is widely known. In tennis, there are people that get lifetime suspensions, fines. Like match rigging is prevalent, and they have like people whose jobs are to monitor wagering, on tennis in real time, and to be examining matches to see if match rigging, match fixing is going on. So, like I said, I hear the different excuses, but I don't see that it's based in anything. I don't see that it's based in like actual evidence. And so the question and let me ask you this: what do you think the most common way to throw a match would be? The most common way.
Just
What are you talking about? Lack of effort?
Yeah, lack of effort.
Just lack of effort, right?
Making mistakes.
Just not to try very hard.
Sure.
Okay. Do you feel like a full effort is being given? Do you feel like a full effort was given in that match? That everything was being done to win that championship, to win that match?
She certainly wasn't as dialed in as I've seen her before. I will give you that.
But I think we can also remember how, I know you guys were there, how freakishly hot it was that weekend.
That's a fair point.
I mean, we're from the Southeast, dude. We play in heat, all the time. We play 2 days all the time. Like I said,
so you think fatigue had nothing to do with it?
If there's any sign of fatigue, then just show it to me. I mean, don't just make up an excuse that doesn't have any basis in evidence. I don't see any. Not from start, not to finish.
I think that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're giving the opportunity here for us to just go through, and what we're going to do, like Josh was saying earlier, we're just going to go through the clips, and we're going to find some spots that Tripp thought he saw some fishy things going on, and we're going to go through, pick out what we think, what we each see from each side, and talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and one interjection, which is an interesting point as I'm sitting here. It's like what's the ultimate goal as a player from thinking about for me? So if I was in a tournament, for instance, in a tournament where Premier was on the line, which it was me earlier this season, and if I was in a game where I was like, this is a team you want to avoid, so if you play this game and you happen to lose, you're going to slide into the 4, meaning you're going to miss them, and then you're going to have a better chance at getting Premier. I don't know if you're a complete POS. If you, you'd never go up there and say I forfeit. You know what I'm saying? But if the game at the end it's starting to get away from you, you're like, all right, you know what? This is going to benefit me to have a stronger route if that's your ultimate goal. So what do you think? Would you ever consider losing a game on purpose if it led to you, let's say, winning a Premier tournament because it got you to the finals?
I would never lose a match on purpose. I would want to take every tournament I can, me personally, and get the best finish I can at that tournament. Because at the end of the day, it's like where we are right now, I want to win that tournament. I don't think there's really any situation, whether it would benefit me in the later run, where I would feel good about myself if I were to throw a game, and then I'd be put in a better position to win in the championship. I don't think I would feel good about myself. I think I'd feel much better and more deserving of it if I play right, we win, we do all the steps we need to take to win as much as we can, and if it ends up being the 1 or the 2 versus the 3 instead of 2 versus the potentially 4, if you throw that game to switch that, I wouldn't feel as deserving. It's like, oh, I made this happen in a shady way, and it's just, I wouldn't feel very deserving, very happy about that win.
Is it shady though, or is it like a next level strategy? You know what the NFL does at the end of the season? NFL players, they just sit. Once their position's locked, they sit. Do you think that's immoral, that you don't play your starters at the end of the season because you don't want them to get hurt, but your team's like going into the playoffs? But your position's already locked, but I'm not going to play my starters and try the hardest to win this football game. Our position's already locked.
I don't know much about football, so I don't know.
Yeah, just talk about that being a sport.
How does
hockey?
I mean, if you play high school soccer and like you're up by a lot, you're gonna throw in your guys to help. You throw in your backups to give your starters some rest, make sure they're healthy for the next game. But in that situation, it's like you're winning already. You're already on top. That's that game situation I'm talking about. I can't really talk much. I don't really know much about the whole football scheme, so I don't know by what point do they know they're in, and if it can ever change once they're in, or how many teams make it. So I'm not too familiar with that. So I don't really understand it fully to comment on that.
Okay, what do you think?
I think that the underlying premise of all competition is that each player and each team are doing their able best to win. And anything less than that is compromised. So, and there are rules against that. There are rules against match rigging and match fixing, and it's a little bit, if you're manipulating your last pool play game to get a desired bracket matchup, then it's a little bit of a different situation, because you're losing to do something to help improve your chances to win ultimately. Ultimately. But I still don't think it's right. And at least other sports acknowledge that this is an issue, and they have rules against it.
Right.
We do not.
Yeah.
We do not.
Well, I'll be fully transparent. If me throwing a game at the last game of pool play, I'm saying this is the scenario. You lose the last game of pool play by a few points on purpose, even though it's a game you could win, gives you a perfect route, you win the whole tournament, versus you dominate that team 21-11, then you face the big dog, you lose. And those are the two scenarios, and you had me pick one. I'm winning the tournament, and I'm taking that route. Because I'm one of those guys, that's what I'm going to do to win.
Yeah, the problem that you run into is when there's a money aspect involved.
Yeah.
Then now there are laws against point shaving and match fixing and those types of things. And so, there might not have been any direct wagers, on this game.
I understand what you're
saying. But
saying.
the implications for who's going to get in and get to play for $7,500 into co-ed pro are very real.
I understand what you're saying.
And so, so that has to be considered.
I agree. I just wanted to say that because I don't want to try and throw anybody under the gun when I'm a son of a bitch myself. I guess I need to be put under the gun.
Well, the NFL has some pretty strict rules against throwing games.
No, you can't. You can't
throwing games to improve your draft position for next year.
Yeah.
Or those types of things.
I'm
NFL, NBA, all legitimate sports.
Yeah.
Have rules against match fixing, match rigging.
I'm also a Philadelphia guy, and I don't know if you're a big basketball fan. I know you're not really, right? But we tanked for a few years to get Joel Embiid, tanked to get Ben Simmons, trust the process. Jimmy Butler came, and it was a great few years of my life. So there's some good that can come from it. Okay, so talk to me here. Where are we at?
So what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna go through clips. We're gonna go through clips that Tripp picked out to see if what we can interpret from the Philly finals. For the viewers, what I'm going to do is we're going to watch it here on our phone, but I'll throw it up on the screen for you guys to see, so you can see what we see. And then you can have your own opinions on it. Listen to us talk about it, and we'll try and hit every single option as far as like what could have happened.
Yep, and we're gonna have the video going here, Tripp. So you have the email too. Do you want it in bold and big?
Okay.
Game 1, first point. If you want to talk us through it as we watch it, and then we can watch it and come back.
Okay.
So go ahead, just whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so that this is probably the first clear instance that a full effort, is not being given to win every point of this match. We've got an easy put away coming that's just missed, and then I feel like there's some pretty bad acting, and then you have to talk about it. Again, sure. It's not any one thing; it's the totality of everything that's happened. You've got an unexpected result, you've got unexpected scores, and then when you go and you look, you see unexpectedly or uncharacteristically poor performance, and then you also see some behavior around it that's very awkward, that is uncharacteristic.
Right.
So
in the first play that we basically saw a set from Subtle where Allie goes for a put away and is unable to execute the put away.
Just
kill shot.
Yeah, just rims it out.
Right.
Pretty easy, just, basic right in the right hand, easy forehand, rims it out, and then it's so bad that she talks about it. She's like, oh, that was such a horrible hit. I wasn't trying to do much. Just kind of nervous, behavior. It's just the way that somebody acts when something isn't kosher.
What do you think, Matt? You saw the play. We'll go back and forth.
So it was like, what I saw is she got a touch. That's number one for me. If you're really trying to throw and you get a body touch, I feel like you can easily make a body touch go in a wrong direction by leaning forward or leaning back a little too much so it goes over you, or opening up a spot that they can kind of sneak it past you. So getting a body touch off the bat is like, I see that's trying. And yes, she whiffs a hit. We all whiff hits. Even at the pro level, hits get whiffed. And in this scenario, it's hot outside. She's played a whole day on Saturday. Now she's played a whole day on Sunday, coming off a heated series against Golden Hour. And then if I miss a hit, hopefully I'm in the right mindset. Well, I will laugh about it, and I'll be like, that was terrible. Like that was bad. And I think that's where she came from with that situation.
Yeah, let's go to the next one because we don't have to. We have a handful, so let's go to the next one. You have us?
Yeah.
Timestamp coming up. Clips coming up for you guys. We're gonna roll through it here. Make sure Tripp can see too. Can you see this? Go back, Maddie. Go back. So it looks like lefty on, Gabe with the kill. Looks like body on one, bounces on the net a few times. Mm-hmm. So talk us through what you're seeing here, Tripp, because we're playing it, so the viewer's seeing it too. So it's not.
I guess what was obvious to me is the serve receive is really bad. Everything starts with serve receive at the highest level, and the serve receive just goes completely away from the net. It's way back over Joe's head. It's not a particularly challenging serve, and it just sets everything up for for an out of system play. High level round net is in system round net, and there's very little in system play in this match. So, and then again, I see her just sitting down after a play. Just kind of. There's no reason, to be falling down and sitting down. But she does. It's just very uncomfortable and very suspicious, very obvious.
Could an exhaustion be a fact of that? I know you were saying like, where's your proof of the being tired? Like she's not saying, oh, it's so hot, it's so hot. I don't have the audio on right now for us, but what I see is like if she's getting a body and kind of just going to her knees and dropping down, and then having Joe help her up. That could be a sign of exhaustion. Obviously, I'm not in her head. I don't know what she's feeling, but from the looks of it, that could definitely be a symptom of exhaustion, or just an example of it. What do you think on this one?
This one's tough because I feel like she executed a nice off-net lefty hit, which I felt was a higher level of difficulty than the first play, if I saw that correctly. Oh yeah, we're on to a new play. I'm like, what is this? But yeah, I don't have a ton of feel either way on the play. I know even when I spoke to Tripp initially, he was like, this one I feel like it's a touch less obvious, and my ideals align with him on this. I think that's one of the less obvious instances. This is a tough sell for me, but that's why I like going through it. And admittedly, I don't know as much about the co-ed game and the women's scene. I don't. So that's why I have no issue going through it. And I obviously value his opinion and his knowledge of the game. So let's go. Let's go to the next one.
I'm a big fan of just going through and talking about it.
Yeah,
whether
it's not personal.
I would just say this, okay? If you're going to throw a match, you can't throw every single play.
For sure.
you still have to make, some plays. So, for anybody to say, well, that's a good play or that's a good play. Well, of course.
Right.
You have to make some good plays. You can't lose 21-0. Okay? Even though this was really egregious and giving up 11 points in a row is really obvious. There's got to be some good plays mixed in, or else it's just going to be, completely blatant.
Do you know who those 11 points were given up to?
To Gabe. To Gabe on serve.
You know he's a big dog, right? He's
Yeah.
a big dog on campus.
Yeah.
It's a big dog 7 feet away from the net.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All
He's
right.
our dog, so we got to ride.
This clip we're on is clip number 1 of game 2.
Yep, 356. Okay, this is game 2. So it's at this current time, what is it? It's 1-0 to Gabe and Sarah are up, correct? Okay. Serving to Allie here. Let's dive into it. Will there be audio?
Yeah, I can put audio.
No, you're good.
I'll give them audio.
As long as there is audio, because then we don't have to worry about a couple little random, blips of us not talking. Is fine. Second serve. Gabe to Allie. An athletic stance. Yeah, that was a little weird.
But
I remember that one. It was a little weird.
you wanted to touch on was the weird exchange between Allie and Gabe in that first high call.
That's really not it.
Okay.
I really don't have an issue. The serve receive is just, there's no effort put forth there to receive that serve. I mean, you would make some kind of move to get the ball up in the air. There's no move whatsoever to get the ball up in the air. It's just the ball hits her hand and then falls completely to the ground. And even after that, there's no serve receive motion. It's just, I'm standing here like a zombie and I let it hit me, and then I watch it.
He's ruthless.
And then I laugh about it.
Right.
It's brutal.
Yeah, this one looks like a momentary lack of effort, and just like it was low. It's a bad angle for us. I mean, is it a reverse cut? Did she bite and then it sits?
I'm sure it's a reverse, but it's not like these players have never seen a reverse before. I mean, everybody that's playing co-ed at the highest level has seen a reverse.
Yeah.
But it's coming straight at her, and there's no move whatsoever to receive that ball. It's just the ball hit me in the hand, and now it's on the ground. Ha ha ha.
Right, after going down a game to love. Yeah, I mean that's an instance where
No, they're actually up right here.
But they're down a game, aren't they?
No,
Didn't they lose the first game?
They won game 1.
Mm-hmm.
They won game 1. Yes.
Oh, they were up
22-20.
1-0. You're right.
Yeah. So we've got, something has to be done at this point. We got to start giving away points.
But maybe they're thinking, what about if they're just thinking like we're about to take complete control of this game? We just beat them 22-20. Maybe they're thinking it shouldn't have even been that close. And right now, they're still just kind of having fun.
You see any evidence of that? or is that just a supposition?
I guess it's just a supposition, but it seems like they're in a comfortable spot in this match. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, they were comfortable for a long time. They, the first part of the game, they started out the match 32-28 over the first game and a half. I think she had to throw just to keep the thing close. They're so much better. They're such heavy favorites. And then after going 32-28, the first game and a half, they finished the rest of the match 17-34. So they're
with
winning
the 11-point run.
Yeah, they're winning by 4 points the first half of the match, and then they get outscored by double in the second half of the match. Just the wheels fall completely off. So
I've had that happen sometimes where it's like you win a game one heavy, and either you are super confident and you're like, or not even win game one heavy, you win game one and you're like, oh, that was too close than it should have been. We got this, game two. And then we get absolutely smoked because we were not in that right headspace. We leaned back a little bit, and just stuff like that. I've seen it happen. It's happened to me. I don't think it's completely. It's like possible. It's one of the things where it's possible. It's possible.
Did that happen when you were a lot better than the other team?
I wouldn't. See, I don't know. I feel like.
I mean, do you think they'd let that happen in a final? When everything was on the line and all you had to do, when you're complete control of the match and all you have to do is just finish?
What do you think?
I mean,
You're on the hot seat, big dog.
I know I'm in the hot seat. I'm terrible at debate. I'm not doing excuses though. Like I think
that any one of these instances, like if it was just that point in and of itself, okay, then I think that these reasons could be considered valid. But again, there's 15 of them. There's 15 questionable plays with questionable effort. And it's like, how many do you need to see? Like, I stopped counting after they gave up 11 in a row. I didn't even watch the back half of Game 3. It was so outrageous. It's like, how much is enough? I mean, what do you need to see? Do you need to see like a signed confession saying I threw the game? That's not going to happen. That's never going to be the case in these instances. So
let's move on.
Take me to it, brother.
357.
Yep. And what we'll do is we'll get through. I mean, there is a lot, so I don't want to. If we did all of them, we'd be like 2 hours in. But let's definitely hit on this game 2 stuff, and then we can get into chat and more. What do we have here? Oh, is this the set?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They won the point, but
they did win the point. But that's just there's no reason for that ball to get set a mile high
and like 3 feet off.
Yeah. That's a layup. That is an absolute layup.
Let's see it here. Gabe, the serve is actually high. But I know we're talking about don't speculate, give me facts. I'll give you some facts. When I set like dog shit? When I'm tired. When I set overhand and lazily? When I'm kind of tired. That is the gosh darn truth for me. So it's like, is she tired? Like, I gotta have to freaking reach out to this woman now and be like, were you tired? And then if she's just like, nah.
And then she talked about it.
What'd she talk about? She said that set was bad?
She said, oh, my setting's so bad. That's the best setter in the world. That's the best, what most people would say, that's the best female setter in the world. She was 2 feet off the net, and she blew it 3 feet off the other side and a mile high. Yeah. That's a layup.
She did lazily set it overhand, and I think you're more prone to errors when you set it overhand, but yeah. I get what you're saying.
Joe wants the ball. Joe's got the length. He wants the ball right in the middle of the net. She missed by 3 feet.
Is that her only box set?
Off the other side. No, there's plenty more.
Because nobody's perfect. Obviously, we know.
Yeah.
We know. And again, it ain't. This is just debate club here.
Yeah.
4-0. You got me. 4:05 here.
Yeah. Settles up 1 point, 9-10.
Yep, we got the clip rolling for you guys. Who do we have serving? Is it Gabe again? I mean, come on. Let's see what we got here. Gabe with the left? Good for you, my friend. Yeah, give us a rotate here. Okay.
What'd you
Talk
see?
me through what you saw there.
Okay, number one, she hit it right at him, and she hit it right at him all game long. Have you ever seen teams that they play pepper with each other and they're just hitting it, and rallying?
Mm.
That's basically what she did. She didn't hit to any open spots all game long. She keeps hitting it right at Gabe. She had an open forehand pull where all she had to do was step across and pull the ball back to the open spot. That's one of the easiest finishes in all of round net. And she turned it down to hit it right at Gabe. And then after she hit it right at him, when he came up to hit, she moves out of the way of the ball so awkwardly. Like she almost dodged and got out of the way of it so that she wouldn't body. And it was so bad that Joe had to come up and coach her up, play it. And you'll see that he comes up to show her, look, get down on that ball. That's one of, she's, again, that's the second best co-ed team in the world. She's one of the best co-ed players in the world. She's an excellent body defender. She knows how to play body defense, but she played it so poorly that Joe's got to come and say, how about we get down in front of the ball? Let's try that. So I don't understand. I don't understand why she would get out of the way of the ball right there. But that's what she clearly did, and her partner thought so too.
Yeah. So let's talk about the clips here, Maddie, before we go to the next one, because I think there's something to be said about what's going to end up happening with the clips. I think what we probably should do is put some more of these timestamps in the pod. We're not going to be able to get through all of them. I think if there's any more, Tripp, that you'd like to highlight, like 2 or 3 more, I say we do.
And we'll throw the rest in the description.
We'll throw it in the description, so it's not smoothed over.
Yeah.
But what's going to end up happening with the rest of these points is, I think it's going to be tough, because what's going to happen is we're going to try and play devil's advocate and say, this is what we're seeing. It could be this, could be that. We're not sure. I wasn't there. I mean, we're looking at it now, and I don't have enough intel. We understand Tripp's side of it, but it's going to become fairly repetitive.
Yeah.
I think we should still fire a few. If he has any that are like these like 2 or 3, I'd love to not smooth over. Let's fire on them, but it's going to become and not that it's a bad discussion. It's a good discussion. And
That's fine with me. Go to 426 in game 3.
Okay.
So that's going to be 3-3.
So this
With
is
426
what was the
even.
score of game 2?
Game 2 finished 20. Allie double faulted at 18-20
Okay.
to lose 21-18.
426. Gabe to Allie. She receives it. Ball goes wide away from Joe, and she gets a hand on the ball. The ball goes way out on the opposite side of the net from Joe, and then she falls.
Why is she falling down? Why is she sitting down right there? She's acting. That's why. She feels awkward because she played another serve receive straight into her right hand, completely the opposite direction of where she wanted it to go. And then she sat down. That's her pattern. That's what she does when she's uncomfortable, is she just sits down for no reason. Because she's not really playing, she's acting like she's playing.
Yeah. I mean,
Why is she falling down right there? Why is she faking like she's falling?
Obviously, we're not in the head.
yeah, we'd respect speculatively, I'd say she made an error. It's embarrassing at a certain level. She is at a net with all of her friends, and she's being goofy. She knows the points don't matter, and she's having fun. That's my, like, you step back from somebody who doesn't know the co-ed game like you, admittedly.
Mm-hmm.
That's me taking a step back, and if you were asking me, what do you see? I'm telling you, that's potentially what I see.
Okay, and that's enough for me. She knows the points don't matter. She's being goofy. She's having fun.
Sure.
I.e., she does not care whether she wins or loses.
Yeah, she's certainly not dialed in. I will agree with you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could exhaustion be a point of that too?
Right.
I mean, and this word just gets repetitive. It's like, yeah, we think that she's exhausted. It's just like,
She doesn't look tired, though. I mean,
okay,
I think I align with what he's saying. I don't think she looks fatigued, but I think that I'd like to know if she was. I'd like to know if she was tired. So, we'll see. Maybe one day we'll be able to ask her. Who knows?
Okay.
Okay,
Let's
go
go
ahead.
to 427-23.
427-23. So we're in game 3 here for this clip. At this point in time, it is 8-3. Gabe and Sarah are winning. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to work with a good reverse cut here. Get a hand on it, ricochet. Let's see.
Allie makes another set way far off the net. She just doesn't receive anything that they can play in system all game.
Come on, Sarah.
And then she hits it right at Gabe again. Okay. Now they've given up 7 points in a row. Just let it run.
Keep it running.
Here's the problem that I have. They've given up 7 points in a row.
At
the
this
game
point?
is completely getting away from them.
What's the score right now? I'm sorry.
Now it's 9-3. They went
Okay.
from being up 3-2.
To down 9.
Now they're down 9-3. They've given up 7 points in a row. Okay?
Yeah.
We're bobbing our head to the music, having fun. I don't see any signs of fatigue. I just don't see somebody that's interested in competing.
We do have hands on the hips. But I get what you're saying. Just wanted to make sure we...
There's another nasty serve. Okay. Now
But
Joe's got to
Go
call the timeout.
He calls it
Okay.
T. But it was a nasty serve.
Yeah, that's a legitimate serve.
It is. But the other ones, you are saying that the serves on Joe are legit, and then the serves on her is lack of effort. When
No, not all
a
of them.
reverse cut can freeze you, even
Not-
if it's coming as a
Yeah,
bit
not
of a
all
jam.
of them. Some of them are legitimate.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we point that out because it is important to make sure we note both sides. Because, again, I don't know enough about the
Yeah.
co-ed scene where I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. That's
So now the game has gotten completely away from them.
right.
Okay.
Right.
Now it's 9-3.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to go to 4:30:16? The next timestamp here, which
Sure.
go to 4:30:16, which pushes us to 11.
Now
to
it makes
3.
it 10-3. Now
Okay.
let me ask you this: the body language for somebody that's just given up an 8-point run. Does she look concerned?
There certainly is not a sense of urgency. That's why I want to know what the vibe was. I get what you're saying. Yeah, this one again. I know where you're going with this one. I would like. I mean, it probably never happened, but I'd like to know what she was thinking too, because like we said, we have this play which we're running here on the pod. It's a bit of an off-net set by Gabe. Sarah doesn't kill it. The kill there is crazy from Allie. It's not a high-level shot, admittedly, and she's sitting on the ground for a couple seconds, right?
She sat down in the middle of the play.
Right, in the middle of the
In
play.
the middle of the play. The plays, again, she made a terrible hit straight up and down, like an intermediate level hit.
Yeah, and she doesn't bounce up to try and get back
And
into
then
the defense.
and then she goes, rather than, playing defense, she goes to one knee, and there from one knee, she sits down as the play is continuing.
Right.
And then Sarah falls over the top of her. Because why wouldn't she? Because why would somebody be sitting on the ground in the middle of a play of a game that they're trying to win.
Right.
It's absurd.
So there is certainly something going on. 100%. I think even she would say it. It's just I would wonder what the reason was. Was she not dialed in? But then you also have to take into account we're also dealing with people. Was there something? Was she dealing with something? And again, this is speculation. Is she dealing with something outside of round net? Was she out drinking Saturday night after the tournament? I don't even know what these people do. Was she not at her peak level? I don't freaking know. But I definitely think that there's some fishy plays there. And you weren't just grabbing at straws. And I know that most people just say, oh, to even look into it is completely a waste of time. I don't think so. I think it's healthy to look into. It directly affected you and mixed signals placement. So I get it. I would be doing the freaking same thing if that was my team. And I saw some funny business. So I'm not mad at you. And I think there was some plays in there where I'd want to know from her. Like,
well, I don't think you're going to get that. I think it's, if you think that you're going to, like I said, if you think there's some kind of concrete evidence, there's some kind of smoking gun, there's some kind of picture of money changing hands, that's not how these situations work. You have to examine the evidence and draw a conclusion. Like I said, I know what I'm looking at, and I'm not stupid.
I don't think you're stupid.
I know that there is not a full effort being given. And if you're not going to give a full effort to win the game, then what does it matter why you're not giving it? You gave a full effort in the semifinal.
Right. And that's
a full effort was given in the semifinal.
That's valid.
And now you turn around, you go from beating the best team in the world, far and away the best team in the world, and you lose to a team that hasn't made a podium and give up 11 points in a row to them?
Yeah. It's
and
fishy.
Get blown out? Come on.
Yep. You know what else is it? And I have to I hope you don't take any of us jabbing back at you as disrespect. No. It's a healthy conversation. But I was thinking about this when you brought up the semifinal. Mm-hmm. You know who's one person? If I was having an off day, or if I was having a day where I wasn't playing my absolute best, or I was having a day where I was out too late the night before and the stars weren't aligning for me, you know who's the son of a gun that I would dial it in and I'd rather die than not give you my max effort? That's my brother. Mm-hmm. I'm going to beat his ass. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially, maybe there was a touch, and again, we're being speculative. Maybe I'm not losing my sister. No shot. But the next game, I exhausted everything here. I'm not playing at my best. I'm not feeling my best. But again, we are speculating. I just wanted to throw that tidbit in there because I don't care if I was on my deathbed. If I come into a semifinal against my brother, it's just how we were growing up. We're going till we go out, till I can't try any harder. Who knows if that plays into it? I'm not in their heads. I don't freaking know. But you brought. We'll let you give your closing statement. I'd like you to go before Tripp gives his closing statement on Phillygate. But I think that you presented valuable evidence. I think that you presented a case that you'd have some of the jury going, I don't feel like you would be in a unanimous vote that nothing happened if this were in front of a judge and jury. I'll be completely honest with you. Again, I think it's a little bit of faith in humanity that I hope that it wasn't a straight up throw for the wrong reasons. And I get what you're saying. A throw for any reasons, not giving your max effort for any reason is ultimately not optimal and not where we want to be. Understood. I'd like to know what the reason was that she sort of was in a more of a silly mindset, not her usual laser focused, where she was. I'm not directly involved in the co-ed scheme at all, whereas you are extremely involved. So it's much more personal for you, and it's going to create more fire in your belly, which is cool, which is fine. I've had people do funny business with me in the game too, and afterwards I've been like, yo, I know that there was some funny shit going on with this guy. So like I've been there too. I know everyone's been there, whether or not they've been brave enough to put themselves out there on a public forum. Not everyone is. Some people like to keep things close to the chest. But that's sort of my 2 cents. I don't know what happened. I would be going based off of the information you gave me, a little bit of my faith in humanity, right or wrong, and put those two together and say, I don't know. I just don't know. With that being said, I definitely appreciate you being, like you said, you being man enough to come on here and be like, this is what I think, this is where I'm seeing signs. And the signs that you showed us are not BS. They are not. So it's like, I don't know. I just very much appreciate you doing that, because you said you would, and I didn't necessarily think that you wouldn't, but I thought maybe you'd dance around it a little bit more, and you were true to your word, and you didn't. And I have a lot of respect for you for doing that in general. Whether we agree, disagree, whatever, you know how I feel about you. It's all love. So that's sort of my 2 cents. Matt, what do you think?
I love seeing different sides of opinions and all that stuff, because that's like, I'm human. That's the T. That's like, oh, something's going on here. This guy disagrees. This guy disagrees. It's like everybody loves seeing it. Where I love seeing it is I like hearing both sides and seeing where people come from. And like you were saying, Tripp did a very good job presenting evidence of what he did his research. And I think
He did.
I don't think he necessarily watched the game and was like, the score seems weird. Let me go back and inspect every single frame. I think because of who he is as that coach, as that manager, as that father who just knows the sport so well, the way he watches RoundNet is different than the way we watch RoundNet.
I agree.
He watches on a much more technical standpoint. It kind of like plays in his head slow motion, and it's something that we wouldn't be able to understand. But I think that's why he was able to see this and kind of be so quick to comment on it. And yeah, I like Josh was saying, thank you so much for coming out and just like being able to present what you wanted to present. And we're happy that we can provide a place where people can feel like they can say what they want, where if they have a side, they can say what they want without any repercussions, without getting us yelling at you. Obviously, we're not going to do that. So yeah, I just think having this medium for this side of RoundNet is healthy. I think it's much needed. People need to talk about it instead of just shut it down. That's what I advocate for, and that's something that I plan to do a lot with this podcast.
Yep. So Tripp, turn it over to you. Give me your closing remarks. If you want to put a button on top of Phillygate, cool. If you want to let it live there and we move on, cool. And then give me your thoughts on what this experience was like for you coming on the podcast and spending the day with us in this setting.
No, I appreciate you guys letting me be here. I'll just say this.
Yeah.
It's only human nature to want to believe the best in people, to believe the best in organizations. And I get that. Like, I understand that. Even when something, is obvious and it might be right in front of us, we don't really want to believe that we're being deceived or that we're being lied to. I'm a bit older than most people in the community. I've seen some things. I can give you a real world example of exactly how this concept works. We had COVID. Everybody understands COVID. Everybody understands what happened. And so the question naturally gets asked, where did COVID start? Where did it come from? And what the government told us, what the World Health Organization and everybody else told us, was it came from a wet market out of Wuhan. Okay? Well, which wet market in Wuhan? The one right next to the virology lab, to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where they do gain-of-function research and work on infectious diseases just like COVID-19 all day long.
Did you know he was going down the COVID line? This is an incredible transition.
As soon as something like that gets said, there's a whole bunch of people that are going to be like, well, they said it came from the wet market, so that must be true. Like, right. Certainly they wouldn't lie to us. But when I see something like that, I'm like, are you serious?
Right.
I mean, it's like, put two and two together. When every single ball that shows up in Toulouse is bad, put two and two together. That didn't happen by accident, okay? And in the same way as you'll never get the evidence that you need to say,
to close the case,
to say, yes, I know for sure that she threw. Like, you guys are already there. you see that she's not locked in. You see that she's not playing this match the same way that she just played the previous match. There's no honest explanation for that, but the effort's not there. And the people that I've showed, these two that have looked at these clips for me.
Yeah, what's that response?
Say it looks like she's playing pickup. It just looked like she's playing pickup. But she's not in a pickup situation. She's in a championship match with a whole bunch of points and $7,500 on the line, And so that's why there's repercussions for not giving your best effort. And I can't find anybody that will say she's giving her full effort and she's doing everything that she can possibly do to win. And that's the most common way to throw a match, is just not to try very hard. I think that's what you see here. And you can then say, okay, well, these are the reasons why maybe she's not trying very hard. Okay, but maybe the reason she's not trying very hard is she doesn't want to win the match.
Right.
For whatever other reason. That's just as viable as these other reasons
with you.
that you have.
Certainly possible.
Fatigue or whatever else that we don't see, that there's no evidence for. So, motive and intent, you're never going to get answers to that question. I don't think she's ever going to say, yeah, I threw it. But, if there was one instance, in a game with an unexpected result that they lost close, then maybe, I don't make the claim. But when the number 2 team in the world gets completely blown out and gives up an 11-point run to a team that has never made a podium before, and there's not just one instance, but 15 where something fishy is going on, to use your words. It's just too much. I'm not buying it. And I don't think anybody else that's objective is going to buy it either. They shouldn't buy it if they're unbiased and they're looking at things as they really are, not as they want them to be or wish that they would be. Now, certainly people that are, at the top of the food chain, that are her friends or whatever, are going to come on and deny immediately that anything untoward could be happening. But I don't have any of those, encumbrances weighing me down that I have to think one thing or the other. I can just call balls and strikes. So that's where I come on that. But I appreciate you guys, letting me come on and share that with you. I'm always happy to have a discussion about anything that I say, about the substance of the issue itself. I find that generally people don't want to have those discussions about the actual substance of the issue, and there's not much I can do about that. We can agree to disagree or whatever else, and I'm not just making stuff up out of thin air. I've been around the block.
So at the end of the day, it really is just people have opinions with everything in life when it comes to it. And when people don't agree with each other, you can choose to have a conversation about it, or you can choose to dismiss it. And sometimes there are people who will just say like what they want to say and then ignore the rest of the conversation. Like they'll say you're wrong, but not give any backup to that. So what Tripp's basically saying is just whatever he says, he will back up. That's basically what he's saying. So if you have something you want to talk to him about, he may look all big and scary, but at the end of the day, he's got the same view as you as a part of RoundNet. Whereas you guys, all of us, hopefully, want the best for the sport. We want this sport to grow in a great way and just become amazing. He wants it. I'm sure you guys want it. You guys go up, talk to him. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to talk to you. Just pick his brain a little bit. See where he comes from. I just go from me being able to talk to him this weekend. It's just super cool experience because this is someone I never thought I'd be hanging out with. And it's super cool, the people that you meet through this sport and just making these different connections, good or bad, having these conversations, good or bad. It's needed in this sport, especially with it being such a relatively new sport, still growing, still becoming as good as it could be.
Yeah. I'll turn it over to you, but this would essentially be my closing piece. Tripp reached out a couple weeks back, talked about asking for an opportunity to come on the pod to talk about his story and certain things he sees in the game, and asked if we'd offer him that platform. We understood that Tripp is, quote unquote controversial, like we talked about when he throws things in the Discord, they light up like wildfire. So we understood that bringing Tripp on the pod to talk about the X, Y's, and the Z's and stuff, and not so much Katie, but Tripp would be somewhat of a hot take. But I wanted to reiterate now, and we'll probably put some sort of disclaimer when we post. The Spiked Lemonade podcast is about pushing the sport forward. It's not about it's about pushing the sport forward and being able to talk about whatever. If you want to come on the podcast, shoot us a message, a direct message. Dang, talk about showing that you're 32. Shoot us a DM and come on the pod and talk. It's a judgment-free zone. I'd love to everyone and anyone to come on the pod and talk about anything. Even if you watch this and you say, I'd love to read and react to that and come on the pod and talk about that episode because this was said and that's completely fine. I highly doubt Tripp would have any issue with anyone coming on and saying, well, he said this, but I feel like this is the way it is. He'd probably welcome that, as opposed to you just hitting the dislike button on a hot take. So this is really just me sort of being like, if you want to come on the pod, it's a complete open platform. We do not shy away from anything to talk about. I guess there's certain places we wouldn't go, but really it's open. In the round net community, the passion that we have for the podcast is to push the sport forward and talk about some of the cool nitty-gritty things that don't get discussed in other places, but in a helpful and hopefully productive way. And so I knew bringing Tripp on would be that, because when I got around to talking to him on the phone and we started to come up with the framework for the episodes, I thought that what he brought to the table was important. And when he reached out to me, I connected with some of my best connections in RoundNet and some people in higher up spots. And I said, hey, listen, Tripp's thinking about coming on. This is sort of what we're thinking about talking about. What's your 2 cents? And I did not have a single person say, don't have him on. Don't do it. Not worth it. It was just like, dude, there's something valuable in that. And I think that is valuable because right now everyone's image is based on an open forum chat box as opposed to a place where you can actually have a conversation. And sometimes that's very limiting. So I guess I'm doing a little bit of rambling right now, but I really have enjoyed this. I think that it's a healthy conversation, and you have been through more in RoundNet than most people. So yes, you have more experience. You've seen more of the backside. You've seen more of like the USAR stuff and being on boards and implementing policies. We've never done any of that shit. So it was cool to see like that other side and sort of like your vision, how passionate you are. This is one of the main things that I was super comfortable with you being on the podcast right away. To be honest, you can ask Amanda. We'll talk later. I know that your passion comes from you wanting the best for your daughter, for Katie, to leave her in a sport that you feel like is at a place where it's healthy, it's like thriving, it's heading to maybe an Olympic level, and it's a fantastic, healthy place. So for you, I can never be upset with anybody going to bat for their kids, going to bat for their own. That for me I completely stand by that. Now, again, that's not just taking their side for the hell of it. I'm talking about wanting to pave the way for people you love, even if you ruffle a few feathers. And that I think that you do ruffle some feathers, but I know that your true intentions are good. Even if you make a few enemies along the way, that's just the world we live in, man. So you got a judgment-free zone from me. I don't necessarily think the rest of our friendship and relationship, we won't find things we disagree with and butt heads a little. But you know what I'm going to do now? I'm not going to hit the dislike button. I'm gonna freaking call you and say, Tripp, what the hell are you talking about, man? Let's talk this through. And so like that's really my piece. So I thank you very much for coming on. It's been very cool. It was cool picking up you and Katie yesterday from the airport and getting to find out more about you and your little like intricacies with your relationship with her and you guys cutting on each other and it was just really neat because I'm 32. I'm gonna be getting married soon here and I really want to have a daughter and I want it like that father-daughter thing with like getting them into sports and doing like the freaking tea parties and the dress up. I know it's so corny and it's lame, haha, it's funny, but I really can't wait for that. So when I see somebody with a really, really solid relationship with their daughter, it's like I get kind of jealous. Like that's so cool. And yeah, so that's really my piece. I really, really appreciate you being here. And what we're going to do here is before we finish, the floor is absolutely yours in closing.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate you giving me a platform to talk about things that I think are important in the sport. My hope, why do I do this? Why do I want to come and, talk about these issues? It's really because, as I mentioned before, I want for the sport to turn. I want for our culture to improve. In different areas. I want our player behavior to get better. I want for our leadership to get better. I want for there to be more honesty, integrity, transparency, accountability. I want to see some of these conflicts of interest go away. I think we need to start behaving more. If we want to be a legitimate and professional sport, then we've got to start taking the small steps that are going to get us there. And, I'm sorry that I've stepped on toes. It's not my intention to step on toes. It's my intention to bring some positive change. And I wish that the people that could bring that change would deal as honestly and as openly and as in a straightforward manner as we have today. We agreed on some things, we didn't agree on some things, but we talked it out. I hope that the round net community is better, for the discussion being had, and I hope that our future is brighter for the discussion being had. I think that I've been discouraged in the past from putting forth an effort to make improvements, and so I just decided, okay, I'm going to focus solely on Katie's development and solely on her teams and her teammates. But I really think that you guys could serve a vital role in round net, aside from just your passion for playing the game. I think that having a forum where just what you did, opening it up to where people can come talk about real issues that are important, and hash those out and get those things out in the open, and let's deal with them responsibly, like mature adults, rather than trying to shut down conversation. I think that's a big step in the right direction, and I appreciate y'all's passion for the quality that you put into the podcast, that you want it to be good, and I think that you can really serve an important role, and I'll be supportive of you, in that. If there's anything that I can do to help you guys, if there's anything that I can do, any advice that I can give to up and coming players, especially women, this isn't a sport where you can, just go down to the country club and get a round net lesson like you can get a tennis lesson. There's a lot of things that go into being a successful women's round net team, and I think a lot of those things are hard to figure out. And if I can help anybody with any of those things to increase their enjoyment of the sport, to have more success, to travel more to tournaments, then, I'm always open. I'm willing to help. So appreciate you guys letting me be here.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you,
We
man.
appreciate you coming out. And with that, this concludes the 5-hour session. Going on 5 hours just with Tripp.
Let's go.
This has been a hell of a ride. It's been some hell of conversations. This series is going to be something that we can go back and listen to in the future.
Yeah.
Something for everybody else to listen to and find. They will find something in this series that will be of some importance to them. And that's all we can ask for. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for coming on. It's been a hell of a weekend. And with that, have a great one, guys.
Let's go. Tripp Pierson, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very good.
Let's go.
It was amazing.
Yeah, man.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you. Thank you.
That was incredible.
What a-
the last
what a
one, like
ride.
I was feeling a little bit like draggy a little bit, and then the last one I just like felt great. Like about 15 minutes in, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be the best
Long,
ride.
long time.